America's best drivers navigate their way around this old reliable track in a new car.
But what's old is new again.
Taking the wing off is going to make the cars look more traditional, and the core race fans want to see that.
44 years after Dodge introduced the spoiler to the sport, it's back and ready for action.
Well, the theme for this year has been back to basics, and it is back to the spoiler starting this weekend here at Martinsville. Here you see the back of Joey Logano's Home Depot Toyota now. This spoiler is 70 degrees. You can see it mounted to the back of this car. Look at these little seals right here. NASCAR actually, once the spoiler is installed in inspection, NASCAR puts these seals on them to make sure that the teams do not raise this spoiler up a little bit to give it additional downforce. So it's locked into place. That's where it'll stay all weekend. If you work your way around this side of the car, remember the shark fin that we saw at Daytona? It is back. It'll be right here on the deck lid of Joey Logano's car, and then another piece coming down the rear glass to create additional side force and downforce for these race cars. Now, spoiler will not be a big issue today as far as handling of this race car, but it will be when we get places like Phoenix coming up and Texas. And there was a test last week at Charlotte Motor Speedway as the teams got back used to running the spoiler on the rear of these cars.
Charlotte's a difficult track to test on because since they changed the track, the tires are really kind of odd. You go out the second time, you're faster. You go out the third time, you're faster yet. It's kind of hard to get a real balance on where you are. So that in itself, more so than the spoiler, I think means that Texas is kind of starting over.
I think the test went well. It was useful for all the teams to go out and work on setups, collect some data, drivers to get a feel for the spoiler versus the wing. All that said, we really never started racing each other, and I don't think I've tried to pass a single car the whole time.
I think Martinsville is a good place to get it put in a place the first race out, but I'm looking forward to seeing a mile-and-a-half track getting to Texas and seeing how it's going to react behind cars and things like that. But so far so good.
The biggest thing that we learned from that particular test was just that that the spoiler's not going to turn anything upside down. The next big test is just getting all the cars in a pack and seeing what happens. Here in Phoenix, it's still going to be about a lot of mechanical things that mechanical grip and things that you have to do to the car.
The end plates on the wing allowed the car to get really far sideways, and then it would catch you and straighten you back up. And that's the limiting factor you have in traffic. You push until the car moves around, and you're at your limit, and that's all you've got. So I think it might create more spins and more wrecks. If you remember back to when the wing was first introduced, we'd see cars totally sideways, and like, how did he save it? With the old car, there's no way. Well, we're going back to that setup. So there's a chance there will be more cautions because of that, because you don't have the end cross when you get really crossed up.
So there are still a few unknowns about the spoiler, but one thing we do know for sure is it's a very popular decision to re-implement the spoiler. Now to talk to us more about that, President Mike Helton. Mike, thank you for coming by. We appreciate your time on what we know is a very busy day for you, but this is a pretty big decision to make a change like this during the course of a season, in the early going of the season. What all went in, or was there one thing in particular that made this decision happen?
Yeah, I don't think there was one thing in particular as much as it was a lot of conversations that actually goes back to before this car ever saw the racetrack for the first time. We put the wing on this current chassis for all the right reasons: aerodynamics, aero push, side force, everything that the drivers just talked about in the interviews. But through the development of this current chassis in a couple of full-time seasons that we run it, we've learned a lot of things that we can do aerodynamically that makes the competition on the racetrack at the level that NASCAR fans expect it to be. We can do that now with the spoiler. And oh, by the way, like Mark Martin said, it looks like a NASCAR car with a spoiler on it. I mean, we were talking yesterday during some of the practices of how quick we've got back now to seeing the spoiler on the car on the racetrack in the Sprint Cup garage. In a couple of races from now, it's going to be like we never left the spoiler, I feel like, because it's just so natural. But we can learn things now from aero that we can accomplish with the spoiler, and the guys in the garage area and even younger drivers like a Joey Logano, they still have a lot of experience driving race cars with spoilers on them. So it's not a major new change to them. and they have so much experience with the spoiler that we expect the competition on the racetrack to even start getting even better.
Mike, 3 things. Double file restarts are new. We're going to finish under the green is new. We're back to the spoiler. My point is this. You, NASCAR, it seems like you're listening to the fans more so than ever.
Well, you know, it's a cycle that you experiment with things, you make changes that become very permanent, and you make changes that okay, that was all right, but it's not as good as what it was, and so you begin to cycle things back. So some things are new that are good. Sometimes we change new things and make them old again that are good. So that's just I think that's kind of just indicative of our everyday lives. We do things that we try and we say, nah, I'd rather do it this way. And so you try some things that stick, and you try some things that you go back and change.
All right, I'm gonna bring up an incident that happened 2 or 3 weeks ago that I was very vocal about.
Does this have anything to do with
Atlanta? It was Atlanta, and I was very vocal about it.
I understand.
And I think it was a very polarizing issue. There were fans all the way on one side and fans all the way on the other. Nobody was really in the middle. I applaud you guys and NASCAR for looking at each individual event as an individual event. At the same time, as we're trying to grow the sport, and you look at the sport, you think it hurts the credibility not to have a line that says, this is what we're going to do in this situation, or this is what we're going to do in that situation, like they have in other sports.
Well, and I think that NASCAR has a lot of those. I think we've shrunk the grayness of a lot of our rules and regulations down to very go and no go, and we try hard to do that in most every cases. I also think, though, that there's an argument that can be made, and that our sport has so many uniquenesses to it. The playing field every week is different. And there are so many uniquenesses that we can't have a rule book like football or basketball or baseball where everything is very definitive. We still have some elasticity in what we do because of the variousness and uniquenesses of our sport. The call we made in Atlanta, right, wrong, or indifferent, and it was polarizing, and we knew that whatever call we made would be scrutinized and applauded either way. What we ended up doing, though, and this is what NASCAR has to do, and sometimes calls we make are very clear and easy, and everybody can say, okay, we understand it. Every now and then we have a call that NASCAR, and somebody's got to make it, and it's not maybe popular, it's very complicated, it's not easy to explain, but we have to, NASCAR's role at the end of the day is to make those decisions. What we did in Atlanta is we separated 2 things. We separated what Carl did from what the 12 car did. And really, quite frankly, the next day was more focused on what the 12 car did than what the 99 car did. So we reacted in the race. We parked the 99 car, which there's a lot of circumstances that people say, well, it didn't make any difference, but it could have. It could have been the first lap. It could have been the second place car. So we separated the 2, and we ended up making the call we made, knowing that there was no call that we were going to be able to make out of that everybody agreed with. And it was debatable. It was very polarizing. And we have moments like that in our history, and we're going to have them going forward, but that's just the nature of our sport. Our biggest deal was the 12 car and why it got up in the air. And that's what you see very quickly when you talk about the deck fin. And you talk about the dimensions of this spoiler. We learned very quickly from the 12 car in Atlanta how to make those dimensions work in our favor of keeping cars on the ground at 1.5 mile racetracks. That's the bigger issue of the day. But, you know, I get it, and we've heard a lot from fans.
Did you hear anything from me?
Turn on the television. No, not a word.
You just delivered yours very broadly.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's it. Because and it's just one of those calls that NASCAR had to make that was going to be okay with some people and very not okay with others. Yeah. But at the end of the day, somebody's got to make those calls. It's us, and it's tough, but we have to make them.
Mike, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming by today. Glad to look at the spoiler out on the racetrack today and see how it performs.